In this video, we're going to look at what are the 5 stages of awareness, and I'll explain why this concept from 1966 can make you a better copywriter and a better marketer. Hey there, I'm Nicholas from growthmarketer.co, and like I said, we're going to be talking about the 5 stages of awareness. Now, this is a concept from a book that was published in 1966 called Breakthrough Advertising. The author's name is Eugene Schwartz. He was a copywriter, one of the best copywriters of the 20th century, and he created a lot of prolific content, and his masterwork is Breakthrough Advertising. Now, unfortunately, the book is out of print, and it's very hard to find a copy. I believe there's one person selling the books, but they're very expensive. But anyways, one of the most important concepts from the entire book is this concept of the 5 stages of awareness, sometimes referred to as the 5 stages of customer awareness. And in this video, I want to break it down for you step by step and give you some examples so that you could put the 5 stages of awareness into practice in your marketing campaigns, whether you are writing ads, emails, landing pages, website copy. This concept applies to all of that and more. So let's jump right in. The basic premise of the 5 stages of awareness is that it's not enough to have just a great product or service to sell. In fact, you also need to meet the potential customer or prospect where they're at in their current frame of mind. Let me repeat that. You need to meet your prospect or your customer where they're at in their current frame of mind. And that's where these 5 stages really come in handy, because what Eugene Schwartz was able to do was map out where people are in that buying process or in that decision process as they go from unaware to problem aware to solution aware to product aware to most aware. Those are the 5 stages. And for some people and for some products and services, it's going to be a much quicker progression. But for other people, it's going to be a very slow progression. So this really depends on what you're selling, who you're selling to, and the cost and all the different factors involved in that decision. But essentially, people always move from unaware all the way through to most aware. Sometimes it just happens a lot quicker. So looking at this chart that I put together, let's break down each stage real quick. And then after that, we'll go into even more detail and I'll show you examples for each of the stages. So basically, the unaware stage, this is where the prospect is not aware of their desire or their need to solve a problem, or maybe they just won't admit it. That's considered unaware. Then you have problem aware. This is where the prospect knows that they have a problem to solve, but they aren't aware of any specific solutions. Then you have solution aware. They know that there's a solution to their problem, but they don't know of any specific products like your product or service that could solve it. Then you have product aware, where they know that the product exists, so they know your product is out there, but they aren't completely aware of all that it does, or maybe they're not convinced of how well it does what you say it does. And then finally, you have most aware, where they know of your product and what it does, but they haven't gotten around to purchasing it yet, so maybe they need something to push them over to that goal. Okay, so let's look at each stage in a little more detail. With unaware, like I said, the prospect at this stage is unaware that they have a pain or a problem to solve. In fact, a lot of marketers try to ignore this stage completely, and they just try to market to some of the later stages because it's very difficult to take someone who's completely unaware that they even have a problem and try to convince them to make a purchasing decision. Nevertheless, if you are going to market to the unaware stage, here's an example of what one ad could look like, or basically this is just an example of an unaware ad, where usually it's going to be a longer format. So this is where some of the low intent ad channels like Facebook and Instagram ads would come in handy versus more of the high intent Google search campaign type networks. But for this example, you can see it's a longer format Facebook ad, and the copy contains questions that lead into the problem. So questions are a great way to get people thinking about different problems that they may not know even exist. And then there's usually going to be some type of free lead magnet or free offer, because you don't want to go directly into selling someone who is completely unaware. Next up, we have problem aware. And this is where the prospect realizes that they have a problem, but they are not yet aware of solutions or your solution to solve it. And an example of a problem-aware ad you can see here from Mind Valley. This is also a Facebook ad, and you can see that it focuses on the problem if you want to pause and read that text. And then it also builds upon the desire for something better. That's a really important part of this stage. You don't only want to address the problem, you want to address what comes after that. So this is where you're starting to lead into a solution. And that's where, in this case, the ad closes by working towards mentioning a solution. Next up, in the third stage, you have solution aware. This is where the prospect is very much aware of the problem and they're researching and discovering solutions. And an example of a solution aware ad would be this one. Now, this is a Google ad and it opens with a specific solution. And you can see here, it usually doesn't mention the price. Now, that's not always the case, but a lot of times, if you're just talking about the solution and you're not really getting into the product or the service just yet, there's no need to mention the price at this point. So here's an example from a company called Quotable, where you can find the lowest rates in 2 minutes. So it's talking about that solution, in this case, for finding an insurance provider. Next up, in the fourth stage, you have product aware. And this is where the prospect is actively researching different products or services that will solve their problem. Here's an example of a product aware email. I wanted to switch things up and give an email example because, again, this does not just apply to advertising, although there's a lot of really good examples out there from ads, but you can also apply the same principles that I'm teaching you to emails, to website copy, to landing page copy, you name it. So here's an example of a product aware email from Grubhub, and you can see here that they're trying to create some urgency with the don't miss out text, and they're also mentioning a specific product and pricing, because again, they're talking about the product. And then last but not least, you have most aware. This is the final stage, and this is where the prospect is pretty much ready to make a decision and buy. They've made it through all those other stages. They know they have a problem. They know there are solutions out there, and they've already begun researching at least one product or service, or maybe multiple ones, and they just need something that's going to push them over the goal and make sure that your product or service is the one that they actually want to pull the trigger on and make that purchase. And so for most aware ad campaigns, this is where retargeting comes in very handy, because this is where people may have already seen this product and service and they've done the research and they just need someone reminding them to make that purchase. And so here's an example of a retargeting ad from a company called Handy. You can see it gets right to the point and it contains a very simple call to action. There's not a lot of other things that need to be said in the ad, since this is going to be shown to people who have already interacted with this brand and have already learned about this specific offer. So those are all the stages. This is a different way of visualizing it. You can see here, we go from unaware to problem aware to solution aware to product aware to most aware. And again, some folks may move from these different stages much quicker than others, and it depends on what you're selling, how much it costs, and there's a lot of other factors that go into it. Now, if you want to learn more about this, I recommend you check out my full blog post, which I will link to below, or you can try to find a copy of Breakthrough Advertising. It's a fantastic read, and it's held up pretty well, even for a book that was written in 1966. So I hope you found this helpful. If you want more marketing tips like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.